On the eve of the millennium, the nations of the world committed to 8 Millennium Development Goals in an effort to reduce global poverty by half.
Evolution has given the people of Wales a perspective to say, look after Wales, but also we want to be involved as good global citizens as well.
Tuareg tribesmen from Mali in West Africa visiting the Welsh border town of Hay-on-Wye, world famous for its literary festival and its strong sustainability message. In Wales it's also famous for its twinning link with the mythological city of Timbuktu in Mali, West Africa. In our globalised world where destinies are linked through trade, travel, education, health and climate change, sustainable development cannot be achieved by individuals or even nations alone. Wales for Africa is about how we share our world. The modern capital of Cardiff is one of the oldest multicultural communities in Europe. The global trade in coal mined from the South Wales valleys created busy ports, which attracted people from Europe, the Americas, and from across Africa.
There were more than 50 nations represented in Butetown, and a population that varied between 5,000 and 10,000, depending on the shipping. The movement of people also involves the movement of cultures. For example, people would go to America and bring back records, blues and jazz and so on and so. In Butetown, probably in the 1920s or so, and you could hear music that you couldn't have heard elsewhere.
These connections have endured, and today the diasporan Somali community in Wales supports the reconstruction of Somaliland on the eastern Horn of Africa. A large percentage of Somaliland's development aid comes not from governments, but from contributions made by the diaspora.
People are now involved, some members of the Somali community, for example, in trying to rebuild the north of Somalia.
In the 1980s, Wales was in economic flux with the closure of the coal mines and much of the steel industry.
People at the time really felt that Wales needed to stop being preoccupied with its own problems, or that we could become a stronger nation if we were looking out and reaching to another country and forging partnerships with a different culture. There was a public consultation in the Welsh media, but Lesotho came up time and time again, partly because of its size and its kind of similarities to Wales. It's about a third bigger than Wales in area, about a third smaller in terms of population. It's a mountainous country with a strong choral tradition. The vast majority of the workforce working in South African mines, and so there was a feeling that people in Wales could relate well to this nation, even though it was halfway around the world.
Much of the passion that has driven supporters of Dolen, the organisation which links Lesotho and Wales, has been around education. Dolen's 25th anniversary presents an opportunity to reflect on how Welsh people have supported progress towards the Millennium Development Goal of primary education for all.
When you look at how many teachers have exchanged, how many schools have been linked, how many children have learned about Lesotho, I'd say it's a major achievement for the organisation.
Wales has long had a strong grassroots tradition of social justice movements. Following devolution of government to Wales in 1999, these movements found a resurgent voice through campaigns such as Make Poverty History and Fair Trade. Fair trade guarantees a fair deal for producers in developing countries and gives consumers the power to effect change. Ammanford in Carmarthenshire became the first fair trade town in Wales and one of the first in the UK.
There's been a long tradition of fair trade supporters in the Ammon Valley, really, and so really it was just a case of working towards specifically achieving the criteria that had been set.
The whole community here, including local government, is committed to supporting and using fair trade produce.
I thought it was really important that a small town became the first town to get the status, to make it more of a grassroots thing.
This grassroots movement soon went on to change the consumer habits of the entire nation.
So along came a fair trade forum that was set up with the likes of Oxfam, Christian Aid, Tradecraft, Tier Fund, etc. to say, well, what next? Let's do this, let's make this happen. So Fair Trade Wales was set up to start that conversation.
Following a campaign led by many thousands of community activists, Wales, in 2008, became the first fair trade nation in the world. Now shops, community buildings and workplaces from north to south are using fair trade products. It's having a huge impact on sustainable livelihoods in developing countries, contributing towards the Millennium Development Goal to eradicate poverty and hunger.
We have currently just short of 600 schools in Wales, either with or working towards fair trade status. So when we look to the future, I like to look at them and think that we'll have citizens that are more educated, that are more inspired and motivated, and through simple action can bring about great change.
Some Welsh organisations have taken fair trade to the next level and are now actively working with African partners to help them trade their way out of poverty.
This current year we've just completed making what we call an African beekeeping information portal on our website, which is really a unique and vast resource about information about African beekeeping that doesn't exist anywhere else in the world. And now we're starting a new project which is to do with enabling Cameroon to begin export of honey and beeswax to Europe. It's rural people, they're extremely poor, and there are rather few commodities they can produce that are of interest to the world market. But one thing they can produce is honey and beeswax, which, because it's from thousands of hectares of undamaged forest, can be potentially certified as organic and potentially certified as fair trade.
Bees for Development is one of many small-medium international development organisations, known as SMIDOS, who've come together under Wales for Africa to learn from each other.